Hello. My wife mocked me. I really regret marrying you so early. I should have dated more people first. I just smiled and asked, are you serious? Not long after that, I left her and moved on. I found someone new, someone who truly valued me. She tried dating others, but nothing worked out. Months later, she came back in tears, begging me to take her back, but by then, it was too late. I'm 32M. My wife is 30F. We've been married for 6 years, together for 8. No kids. Both work full-time. From the outside, we looked solid. Stable. Couple goals, according to people who didn't live inside our house. The comment that ended everything didn't happen during a fight. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing special. We were eating leftovers on the couch, some reality show playing in the background. She was scrolling on her phone, half listening, half smirking at something she was reading. I made some dumb comment about how one of the guys on the show clearly wasn't ready for commitment. She laughed, not a real laugh, more like a scoff, and said, honestly, I regret marrying you so early. I should have dated more people first. Just like that. No build-up. No apology after. I turned and looked at her, waiting for the punchline. She didn't look up from her phone. I asked, are you serious? In that calm voice you use when you don't want to believe what you just heard. She shrugged. Yeah. I didn't know myself back then. I settled. Settled. She finally looked at me then, like she was daring me to react. There was no guilt on her face. Just mild annoyance, like I'd asked a stupid question. I smiled. Not because it was funny, because something in me went quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when a decision starts forming before your emotions catch up. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and said, okay. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so passive. That's part of the problem. That night, she fell asleep next to me like nothing happened. I lay there staring at the ceiling, realizing that the woman beside me wasn't confused about our marriage. She was bored by it. And that was the first night I seriously thought about leaving. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. That was almost worse than the comment itself. She hummed while making coffee, asked if I wanted eggs, complained about traffic like we were just another boring married couple starting a boring day. I kept waiting for her to acknowledge it, for a hey, about last night, or even a sarcastic follow-up, but nothing came. On my way out the door, she said, oh, by the way, I'm meeting Claire and Jess for drinks after work. Okay, I said. She paused, eyebrow raised. That's it. No questions? What would I ask? She smirked. I don't know. You used to care. Used to. That word followed me all day. I sat at my desk replaying the tone in her voice when she said she settled. Not angry. Not emotional. Just factual. Like she was talking about buying a car too early before seeing what else was on the lot. That night, she came home late. Loud. A little drunk. She dropped her purse on the counter and kicked off her shoes. You know, she said, pouring herself water. Claire's dating again. She's having so much fun. New guys every few weeks. Stories for days. I nodded, waiting. She looked at me sideways. Sometimes I think I missed out on that phase. I went from college to married so fast. There it was again. Same knife, different angle. I asked, do you regret marrying me, or just marrying early? She laughed. Why do you always make it about you? I didn't answer. She went on, warming to her topic. I just think I could have done better if I'd waited. Explored. Learned what I actually want. And now? I asked quietly. She shrugged. Now it's complicated. She went to bed without another word. I stayed up, opened my laptop, and searched for apartments. Not because I was panicking, but because something in me had already accepted that this marriage was running on borrowed time. She thought she was being honest. What she didn't realize was that honesty cuts both ways. And mine was just starting to take shape. Over the next week, the comments didn't stop. They just got sharper. It started small. You're really content with this life? She asked one night while folding laundry, emphasizing this like it tasted bad. Another time, while scrolling through Instagram, she showed me a guy from her college days. He just got divorced. Wow, he aged well. I always wondered what would have happened if I'd said yes to him. She watched my face when she said it. I kept my reactions neutral, which seemed to irritate her more than anger would have. She wanted a fight, wanted reassurance, wanted proof that I was still competing for a spot she'd already decided I didn't deserve. Friday night, she came home buzzed again, sat on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs like she was 22 instead of 30. You know what scares me, she said. Waking up at 40 and realizing this is it. Same man, same routine, no stories. I asked, am I the problem, or are you afraid of boredom? She laughed. You always make it sound so dramatic. Then she leaned in and said the quiet part out loud. I just think I could have done better if I hadn't locked myself in so young. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped into place. Not anger, not sadness. Clarity. I stopped trying after that. Stopped initiating conversations. Stopped checking in. I became polite, civil, efficient, like a coworker finishing out a notice period. She noticed. You're being weird, she said one evening. Are you punishing me now? No, I replied. I'm listening. That confused her. I started staying later at work, not to avoid her, but because for the first time in years, I felt lighter outside the house. I went to the gym again, reconnected with friends I'd slowly faded from because marriage had become my entire identity. One night, as she was getting dressed to go out, she said casually, if I were single right now, I'd be killing it. I looked up from my phone and said, then maybe you should be. She froze, just for a second. Then she laughed. Don't be dramatic. You wouldn't survive without me. She had no idea I'd already started imagining exactly what that would look like. And it didn't scare me at all. The shift in me didn't go unnoticed. It just took her a few days to decide how she wanted to interpret it. At first, she poked at it with sarcasm. Wow, she said one morning, watching me tie my shoes. Gym again? Who are you trying to impress? No one, I replied. She snorted. Sure. Then came suspicion. She started asking where I was going, who I was texting, why I was suddenly so calm. Calm made her uneasy. She was used to me explaining myself, reassuring her, smoothing things over. One night at dinner, she finally snapped. Why aren't you fighting for this? She demanded, fork clattering against her plate. Most husbands would be freaking out right now. I looked at her for a long moment. Fighting for what exactly? For us, she said, exasperated. For your wife. You told me you regretted marrying me. I said evenly. You said you settled. I believed you. That doesn't mean I want a divorce, she shot back. It means I'm being honest about my feelings. Honest without consequences, I replied. Her face hardened. God, you're so sensitive. This is why I feel trapped sometimes. Trapped. That word sealed it. I stood up, took my plate to the sink, and washed it slowly while she continued venting behind me about how marriage wasn't supposed to feel this boring, how she envied her single friends, how she deserved more excitement. I dried my hands and turned around. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days. She blinked. What? You're running away now? No, I said. I'm giving us both what you keep saying you want. Space. She laughed sharply. You're overreacting. You'll be back by Sunday. I didn't argue. I packed a bag. Just the basics. As I zipped it up, she leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You really think you'll do better out there? She asked. Dating at your age is brutal. I paused, then smiled, not bitterly, not sadly. Calmly. I'm not leaving to do better, I said. I'm leaving because I deserve better. Her smile vanished. I walked out before she could find the words. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I felt like I could breathe again. The first few days away were quieter than I expected. No explosions. No frantic calls. Just a couple of texts from her that felt more annoyed than concerned. Are you done sulking yet? You're really dragging this out. I didn't respond. I stayed at my friend Mark's place, slept better than I had in months, and let the absence do the talking. When I finally went back to the house to grab more clothes, she was there, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling on her phone like she owned the silence. So, she said without looking up, you ready to come home and stop being dramatic? I set my bag down slowly. I didn't come back to stay. That got her attention. She laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Oh my God, you're serious? Yes. Her tone flipped instantly. You can't just walk away because I said something honest. I didn't, I said. I walked away because you said it repeatedly and meant it. She stood up, pacing. Every married person thinks like this sometimes. You're acting like I cheated. No, I replied. You just made it clear you don't respect me. She rolled her eyes. Here we go? Victim mode. That word, victim, hit harder than anything else she'd said so far. I didn't ask to be pitied, I said calmly. I asked to be valued. She scoffed. You're really going to throw away 6 years because I wondered what else was out there? I looked at her and realized she still didn't get it. She didn't wonder quietly. She wondered out loud. To me. Like I was already a mistake she was correcting. I'm filing for separation, I said. The color drained from her face, replaced quickly by irritation. You're bluffing. No, I replied. I'm done negotiating my worth. She crossed her arms. You'll regret this. Dating will humble you. I picked up my bag. Maybe. but staying already did. As I walked out, she shouted, "Good luck finding someone who puts up with you." I didn't turn around, because for the first time, I wasn't looking for someone to put up with me. I was looking for peace. The separation paperwork moved faster than I expected. Turns out when one person stops arguing and just follows through, things get very efficient. I moved into a short-term rental across town. Bare walls, mismatched furniture, quiet. I liked it. She, on the other hand, leaned hard into her missed-out era. Mutual friends started feeding me updates I never asked for. New hair, new clothes, new social circle. She was suddenly out every weekend, posting stories with captions about rediscovering herself and finally living. A few weeks after I left, she texted me out of the blue. "Went on a date last night. It was interesting. No question, no context, just a breadcrumb." I didn't reply. That silence seemed to bother her more than any argument ever did. The next message came 2 days later. "You know, dating isn't as easy as people think. Men our age are disappointing." I read it, shook my head, and put my phone down. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened on my end. I started enjoying my life. Not in a revenge way. In a quiet, steady way. I cooked for myself. I worked out. I slept deeply. I stopped feeling like I was being evaluated every time I walked into a room. Then, about a month into separation, I met someone. Not through apps. Not through friends. Through normal life. She was sitting next to me at a coffee shop, reading a book I liked. We talked. No flirting games. No power plays. Just conversation that didn't feel like a test. Her name was Anna. I didn't tell my wife. It wasn't her business anymore. But somehow, she sensed the shift. One night, she called. Actually called. "You seem different," she said carefully. "Like you've moved on already." "I have," I replied. There was a pause. That was fast. "No," I said. This was overdue. She didn't like that answer. And that's when the tone of her messages changed, from smug curiosity to something closer to panic. She wasn't enjoying the dating pool the way she thought she would. And she was starting to realize that the grass she'd imagined wasn't greener, just louder. By the second month, her confidence had cracked. At first, her messages were framed like jokes. Complaints disguised as observations. "Is it just me? Or are people way worse at conversation now? Why does everyone think 'what are you doing' counts as a personality?" I didn't engage. Every response felt like it would pull me back into a dynamic I'd already exited. Then the updates stopped being casual. She started calling instead of texting. Leaving voicemails when I didn't answer. Talking too fast, like she needed to get everything out before I hung up. "Dating is exhausting," she said in one message. "Everyone's damaged. Everyone's selfish. It's not like what we had." That line almost made me stop walking. Almost. What she meant was, it wasn't predictable. It wasn't safe. No one was bending themselves to accommodate her moods or rewriting themselves to keep her comfortable. Meanwhile, things with Anna stayed slow and easy. No pressure. No comparisons. No tests. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. When I told her about my marriage ending, she didn't smirk or offer advice. She just said, "That must have been lonely." No one had said that to me before. One evening, my soon-to-be ex showed up unannounced at my place. I hadn't given her the address, which meant she'd asked around. That alone told me she was spiraling. She looked tired. Not dramatic tired. Disappointed tired. Like reality hadn't matched the fantasy she sold herself. "So this is it," she said, looking around my small living room. "You downgraded." I smiled. "I upgraded peace." She scoffed, but it didn't land. "You know, I thought I'd have options. I thought people would try harder." "And?" I asked. She hesitated. "They don't." That was the most honest she'd been in years. She sat down without asking, crossed her arms, and said, "You were easy. You were safe. You made things simple." I nodded. "You're right." She looked up sharply, surprised I wasn't arguing. "I just didn't realize how rare that was," she added quietly. I stood there, feeling something settle, not bitterness, not vindication. Finality. She didn't miss me. She missed the version of herself that felt secure standing next to me. And that version wasn't coming back. After she showed up at my place, things escalated fast. Not outwardly, emotionally. She started texting every day again. Sometimes nostalgic. Sometimes bitter. Sometimes oddly flirty, like she was trying to rewind us to a version of our marriage that only existed in her head. "Remember our road trip to Asheville? You always knew how to calm me down. No one listens like you did." I stopped replying altogether. That's when the tears started. One night, around 11 p.m., She called crying so hard I almost didn't recognize her voice. I messed up, she said between sobs. I thought I wanted freedom, but it's just empty. I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't interrupt. I just let her talk herself into silence. I went out with someone tonight, she continued. He talked about himself for 2 hours. Didn't ask me a single question. And I kept thinking, this wouldn't have happened with you. I know, I said quietly. She sniffed. You always made space for me. And you resented me for it, I replied. That shut her up. A few seconds later, she said, I didn't mean it like that. But you lived it like that, I answered. The next week, she sent a long message, pages, really, about how she'd been immature, how she hadn't understood what marriage really was, how she'd taken stability for granted. She said she was willing to start over. Counseling, dates, anything. By then, Anna and I were exclusive. Not rushed, not dramatic, just honest. I told my wife the truth. I'm seeing someone. Her response came instantly. Already? So I was right. You just wanted out. No, I typed back. I wanted respect. She showed up again 2 days later, eyes red, makeup smeared, clutching the version of herself she thought she could still sell me. I'm ready now, she said. I know what I want. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something surprising. Nothing. Because the moment she decided she'd settled for me was the moment I stopped being an option, and she was finally realizing what that cost. After that conversation, she didn't give up right away. She tried everything. First came the nostalgia. Old photos. Screenshots of texts from when we were first married. Messages like, we were so good once. People don't find that twice. Then came jealousy disguised as concern. Is she younger than me? Does she know you the way I do? Be careful. You're vulnerable right now. I stopped responding entirely. That's when she showed up at my office. Not dramatic. Not yelling. Just standing there in the lobby like she belonged, like I hadn't asked her months ago to give me space. When I walked out and saw her, my stomach didn't drop. It didn't race. It stayed neutral, and that scared her. I made a mistake, she said quietly. No sarcasm. No edge. Just desperation. I thought dating would make me feel chosen. It didn't. It made me feel replaceable. I nodded. That's how you made me feel for years. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I know, I replied. That doesn't change the damage. She started crying right there. Not pretty tears. Not controlled. Full-on sobbing. Talking about bad dates. About being ghosted. About realizing how exhausting it was to always audition for affection. I want my husband back, she said. I want the life we had. I took a slow breath. You don't want the life we had, I said gently. You want the safety of it, without respecting it. That's when she said the words she'd never expected to say. I'll do anything. Anything. And that's when I knew it was over for good. Because love that only appears when options disappear isn't love. It's fear. I helped her up, walked her to the door, and said, I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. But it won't be with me. She stood there, frozen, realizing too late that the man she dismissed had already moved on. And this time, I didn't look back. The divorce finalized quietly. No courtroom drama. No last-minute objections. Just signatures, a handshake with lawyers, and the strange feeling of closing a chapter you once thought would be the whole book. She didn't look at me when we signed. I didn't try to catch her eye. A week later, she sent one final message. Not angry. Not manipulative. Just tired. I really thought I'd find something better. I didn't know how rare what we had was until it was gone. I stared at it for a long time before replying. I hope you find what you're looking for. That was it. Anna and I moved in together a few months later. No rush, no grand declarations. Just mutual respect and ease. She never mocked my steadiness or treated my consistency like a flaw. When she talked about our future, it wasn't framed as a compromise. It was something she actively chose. One night, out of curiosity, I checked my ex's social media. The posts had slowed. The captions weren't about freedom anymore. They were vague, reflective, sometimes sad. She was still dating, still putting herself out there, but the excitement she once bragged about had been replaced by exhaustion. I didn't feel smug. I felt grateful. Grateful that when she told me she regretted marrying me, I listened. Grateful I didn't beg, bargain, or twist myself into someone more exciting just to stay chosen. Grateful I walked away before her resentment finished hollowing me out. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When someone tells you they think they settled for you, believe them, and let them experience what life looks like without you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's moving on, being valued, and never having to prove your worth to someone who failed to see it the first time. Bye-bye.